Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into a pretty sensitive situation in Jayapura City, Papua. We're talking about the Buper Waena Public Cemetery, also known as TPU. It's been shut down, and, well, it's causing a lot of distress in the community.
It's definitely a tough situation. Families who need to bury loved ones are suddenly faced with having to find alternative burial sites.
And we're not talking about just down the road. These folks are having to travel sometimes significant distances, which adds another layer of difficulty emotionally and financially during an already difficult time. So from what you've gathered, what's at the heart of this closure?
You know, it's interesting. It's not the typical issues you might expect with a cemetery closure, like overcrowding or safety concerns.
Okay, so what is it then?
This all boils down to a land dispute.
A land dispute. So who's claiming what?
There's a woman, Sarah Road M. Kaigere, who says she's the rightful heir to the land where the cemetery is located.
So she's basically saying, hey, this land is mine, not yours.
Pretty much. And she's asserting what's known in Indonesia as hak Ulayat, which are customary land rights.
Hak Ulayat. Got it. So how's she backing up this claim? Has she taken any action?
Oh, absolutely. It's gone beyond just words. Kaigere actually filed a report with the Papua Regional Police.
Okay, so she's going through official channels.
Yes, but she also took a more direct approach.
Oh, like what?
She blocked the main road leading to the cemetery.
Wow, how does she do that?
She used concrete and metal pipes. There's even a large banner up near the blocked road.
What does it say?
Basically, it warns people to stay away from the TPU because of this dispute.
That definitely sends a strong message. So this isn't just a legal battle playing out in courtrooms. This is having a real physical impact on the community.
You got it. This roadblock is a major disruption. Over 30 bodies haven't been allowed burial at the TPU since this whole thing started.
So where are families taking their loved ones?
They're having to find space in other cemeteries, some as far away as Koya, Arso, or even in Jayapura Regency.
That's a huge burden to put on these families, both emotionally and financially, on top of everything else they're going through.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about those who already have loved ones buried at the Buper Waena TPU.
Yeah, what about the people who want to visit those graves?
They can't. Access is completely blocked.
Wow. So it's a double whammy for the community. They can't bury their dead there, and they can't visit their loved ones already buried there. So if Buper Waena is off limits, where are people finding space?
The other cemeteries in the city are feeling the pressure. The Tanah Hitam Christian TPU, which was already closed because it was full.
Oh, wow. So they were already at capacity.
Exactly. But they had to reopen it temporarily just to accommodate the overflow from Buper Waena.
So they're basically squeezing people in wherever they can.
Basically, families are agreeing to double burials where their loved one is buried on top of an existing grave, or they're trying to find any little bit of space left beside existing graves.
That's just heartbreaking. How much have burials increased at Tanah Hitam?
The daily rate has shot up to 5 or more since Buper Waena closed.
Wow, that's a significant jump.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the impact, but let's get back to the root cause here, this land dispute. Is there any movement towards resolving it?
Well, that's where it gets a bit complicated.
How so?
We have community leaders, people like Supriyadi Leling, a politician who represents the affected community.
And what's he saying?
He, along with others, is urging the Jayapura city government to step in and find a solution.
Seems reasonable. The city can't just let this drag on forever, can they?
You would think so, right? But this is where it gets a little perplexing.
Oh, why? What's going on?
City officials are saying they bought the land legally. They say they even have a certificate to prove it.
So they're saying, we own this land fair and square.
Yes. But they don't seem to be doing anything to enforce their ownership.
Wait, if they legally own the land, why are they letting Kaigere block access?
It does seem odd, doesn't it? It's such a strange situation that it's even drawn criticism from a member of the Papua Regional Legislative Council, the DPRD.
And what are they saying about it?
This DPRD member is publicly questioning why the government isn't doing anything. If the city truly owns the land, why hasn't law enforcement stepped in?
Okay, so we have a government saying one thing but doing another, and community leaders calling for action. What about the police? What's their take on this?
The police are saying they prefer a persuasive approach to handle this.
Persuasive. What does that even mean in this context?
It's not entirely clear. But as that DPRD member pointed out, this persuasive approach isn't exactly producing results.
So everyone is sort of stuck in limbo, and the community is caught in the middle.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if there's more to this story than we know. Are there political factors at play? Are there other reasons why the city isn't taking a stronger stance?
It's easy to get caught up in all the legalities and the politics, but at the end of the day, this is impacting real people.
That's right. We're talking about families who are grieving, who are trying to honor their loved ones, and they're facing all these obstacles.
Yeah, it's just adding so much more stress to an already incredibly difficult situation.
Exactly. And, it's not just about the immediate impact on funerals. There are these ripple effects throughout the community.
Like what? What else are you seeing?
Well, think about the people who have loved ones buried at Buper Waena, people who want to visit those graves. They can't. The cemetery's blocked off.
Right. It's like a double blow, isn't it?
Yeah.
They can't bury their loved ones there, and they can't even visit the graves of those already buried. So, are there any personal stories that really highlight the human cost of this situation?
Oh, there are so many. And each one is just heartbreaking. We've talked to families who've had to transport their deceased relatives miles away.
Just adding to the expense and the logistical challenges.
Absolutely. And there's the emotional toll, too. Not being able to visit the grave regularly, feeling disconnected from their loved one. And then there's the cultural and religious aspect to consider.
How so? How does this closure impact those traditions?
Well, for many Papuans, burial rituals are deeply significant. They're intertwined with their cultural and spiritual beliefs.
So this closure is disrupting those practices.
Exactly. It adds another layer of distress to an already difficult time.
We've heard from community leaders, from officials, but what about the everyday people caught up in this? Is there a sense of anger, a frustration?
Definitely a lot of frustration. People feel powerless. They see the city claiming they own the land, but the cemetery is blocked off, and they're left wondering why nothing's being done.
It's like a disconnect between what the authorities are saying and what's actually happening.
Right. And it creates this sense of distrust, this feeling that their concerns aren't being taken seriously.
It's like this whole situation is just a giant mess with no easy answers.
It is a complex situation for sure, but we can't lose sight of the human side of it.
Absolutely. So if this stalemate continues, what happens? What are some of the long-term concerns?
Well, the longer this drags on, the deeper that distrust is going to grow between the community and the authorities.
Yeah, that makes sense. It also feels like it could set a precedent for other land disputes in the future.
That's definitely a worry. If this isn't resolved fairly and openly, it could embolden others to take similar actions, leading to more disruptions, more conflicts.
So it's almost like a ticking time bomb, isn't it? So are there any solutions being talked about? Is there any hope for a compromise that satisfies both the legal aspects and the needs of the community?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? Finding that balance is going to be tricky.
So what needs to happen? What are the key ingredients to finding a solution?
Open dialogue is crucial. Both sides need to be willing to listen, to really hear each other's concerns and perspectives.
So it's not just about stating positions, it's about genuinely engaging with each other.
Exactly. And maybe some creative thinking is needed too. Perhaps there's a way to acknowledge Kaigere's claim, to compensate her in some way, while still allowing the cemetery to function.
So finding a way for both sides to win, or at least to feel heard and respected.
Right. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about legalities. It's about people's lives, their traditions, and their need to grieve and remember their loved ones in a way that's meaningful to them.
You know, it strikes me that this situation, it kind of raises some bigger questions. It's not just about this one cemetery in Jayapura city.
I think you're right. It touches on these broader issues about development, about preserving cultural heritage, about community needs. These are things that communities all over the world are dealing with.
It's like this tension between progress and tradition, right?
Exactly. And it's a tough balance to find. How do you ensure that progress doesn't come at the expense of those who are most vulnerable, the people who are deeply rooted in their land, in their traditions?
It's like if we're not careful, we end up erasing those connections in the name of development.
And those connections are vital. They give a community its identity, its sense of place. There's a growing movement globally to recognize the importance of Indigenous land rights, the value of traditional knowledge.
So how do we translate those ideas into action? How do we ensure that development happens in a way that respects those rights and that cultural heritage?
Well, I think it starts with listening. Really listening to the voices of the people who are most affected by these development projects. It means meaningful consultation, bringing Indigenous communities to the table, incorporating their perspectives into the decision-making process.
It sounds like it requires a real shift in power dynamics, moving away from that top-down approach.
It does. It's about empowering communities to have a genuine say in how their land is used, how their future is shaped.
In the case of Buper Waena, it seems like that kind of dialogue, that shared decision-making, that's been missing.
Yeah, there's a real sense of disconnect between the community and the authorities, and that's where the frustration comes from.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we move from this place of distrust to a place where people feel heard, where they feel like their concerns matter?
It takes effort from both sides. The authorities need to demonstrate a genuine commitment to listening, to addressing the community's concerns, not just with words, but with actions.
So taking concrete steps to show that they respect the community's perspective.
Exactly. It might mean offering a sincere apology for the distress caused by the closure. It might mean exploring options for compensating Sarah Kaigere for her claim, maybe even considering alternative locations for a new cemetery.
It sounds like it requires a more human-centered approach, rather than just focusing on the legal aspects of the situation.
I think that's key. It's about recognizing that this isn't just about land ownership. It's about people, their grief, their traditions, their right to honor their loved ones in a way that's meaningful to them.
We can't lose sight of that human element no matter how complex the situation gets.
Yeah.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this mix of concern, obviously, but also a sense of hope.
I understand that. It's a tough situation, but I think the fact that we're having this conversation, that there's a growing awareness of these issues, that's a positive sign.
It shows that people are starting to pay attention to the importance of cultural heritage, of community rights, and that's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. And hopefully it will lead to more dialogue, more understanding, and ultimately to solutions that benefit everyone.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah.
It's been a heavy topic, but an important one.
It has. And we'll continue to follow the story and keep you updated on any developments. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.